price is one small component of value, and
Yeah.
and not even the most important and the most easy to copy. And yeah, we can't. You're right. It is a race to the bottom, and it's something that we've talked about here. Like, if we're competing on price, the big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, anybody can beat us any day of the week, and they can sustain pain in our market a lot longer than we can.
The Digital Banking Podcast is powered by Typhone. Typhone is the creator of Infinia, a dramatically better digital banking platform for community financial institutions, as well as several platform-agnostic, revenue-generating point solutions. Our highly configurable platform and broad ecosystem of third-party partners ensure our entire suite is scalable and extensible to meet the needs of any FI. On our podcast, you will hear host Josh DeTar discuss today's most pressing financial technology topics with seasoned industry experts from every possible discipline.
Your podcast hasn't officially made it until there's ads in it. But this is one you're not going to want to skip past. And, well, if you do, feel free to hit that fast forward 15 seconds button twice. Ever wonder what gives me my energy and enthusiasm during these podcasts? Outside of my relentless desire to learn about, connect, share, and build up community FIs and their mission to support the communities they serve. It's coffee, and lots of it. Now, you want to know what's better than your regular old coffee? How about donating $5 to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals through credit unions for kids every time you purchase high-quality, ethically sourced coffee that also provides living wages to coffee farmers. So if you want to listen to this episode with epic levels of caffeine-induced focus and help kids in need, head to javaforkids.org to learn more and buy a bag or 10. Thanks.
Welcome to another episode of the Digital Banking Podcast. My guest today is Shane Saunders, CEO of Mocse Credit Union. Question: have you ever been scrolling on LinkedIn and all of a sudden seen a picture of an adorable baby cow pop up in your feed? If the answer to that is yes, you follow Shane. If the answer is no, you need to follow Shane. Trust me when I say your day will be brighter for it. It's kind of funny. Sometimes I forget I host a podcast. I've been enamored with Shane and his credit union for quite some time. In a world of lackluster marketing and financial services, Mocse has always stood out to me. I love to see what their marketing team has put out. I'm just sad it took me this long to think, man, I should really invite Shane to be a guest on the podcast. Shane started his adult life digging trenches to lay electrical. Realizing that didn't sound like too exciting of a future, he took a call from a Navy recruiter and set off on an aircraft carrier to experience the world. After his tour of service with the Navy ended, he used his GI Bill to get a degree in marketing, something that he quickly fell in love with. Through a series of steps, he found his way into a janitor's closet as the marketing director for a tiny credit union in Florida with an even smaller marketing budget. But it taught him to be creative, to be scrappy, and that the most fun was had when he was flirting with the line of, will this marketing campaign get me fired or promoted? Fast forward to today, and Shane has kept to those humble roots and scrappy ways. He says that even though he has this title that's assigned to him of CEO, he's just a regular guy, someone who wants to do fun things with cool people. And just like his wife, who got sucked down the rabbit hole of beekeeping to having chickens to having goats and raised flower beds and now cows, Shane pours his heart and soul into the industry he loves, the impact it has on people in the communities it serves, and the desire to market the ever-living crap out of the amazing work credit unions do day in and day out. So Shane, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, and thanks for that intro. Funny thing about the baby cow picture, I remember when I posted that, I was thinking, I don't know, is this like appropriate? LinkedIn is headshots and conference pictures and all of that, and I thought, yeah, why not? Maybe that's the reason to post it, is LinkedIn is headshots and conference pictures, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, obviously, we're living this sort of professional persona, and I thought, what the heck? I'll just throw out this picture of a different part of my life. The funny thing about that is not only did I get a ton of feedback on LinkedIn, like everywhere I go, like when I introduce myself, it's like the guy with the baby cow. Like that somehow has become my brand,
That's
the
your
guy
thing.
with the baby cow. So, but it's awesome. Yeah,
I
thanks for that
love it.
intro. That's great.
No, I think that's a really good point though, Shane. I don't know if it almost feels like COVID was a kind of a catalyst for this. I could be crazy or maybe I'm just paying
Yeah,
attention more, but I feel like LinkedIn has changed a little bit. And while it's not like the memes of Instagram and the reels of TikTok and whatever, that kind of thing, it has become a little bit more personal. And
yeah,
I, for one, personally appreciate it because I think I've gotten to a point, at least in my like age and professional career, there's no such thing as professional and personal life anymore. There's
yeah,
just life.
yeah,
And I just want to interact with cool people.
yeah.
And if you're a cool person and you're fun to be around, there's no difference between work and personal life anymore in that. Like
Yep.
they just kind of
I, I
blend.
I love that and agree 100%. And that's a great observation. And I think you're spot on in terms of COVID really changed that, right? We were all locked down in our spare bedrooms, sort of working from home, and just that experience, we got to know so much more about each other and our personal
Hmm.
lives, and the kids would come running in, and all kinds of chaos would happen, and that line really did get kind of blurred. But in the end, like I don't know, I think overall it's a positive thing because we're not, you're not just Josh who runs the company or Josh the podcaster. You're also Josh the husband, Josh the little bit of amateur farming yourself. I recently learned, and so none of us are those kind of flat one-dimensional characters.
Yeah,
We're whole people, right? So I agree.
I
I
like
think
that.
on balance a much better evolution. So,
That's a good way of putting it. We're not this one dimensional facade of what we put on for the corporate world. Like we're a very multidimensional human. And there's so much
right.
that makes that up. And I mean, I would argue that, my personal life impacts and influences who I am professionally more than anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. I mean, we talked about cow and the work like on the farm, the work of running a farm. There really is. Well, it impacts me every day in terms of I start every day outside on a pasture and I finish every day outside on a pasture. And in my role, I got to tell you, it is. While I don't recommend farming, if you can if you can find some time that is that pasture time when it's just the world drops away, you have a really kind of a basic cow sitting in front of you chewing on grass, birds are flying overhead, and you can sort of not just decompress but also think without all the noise and chaos around you. uh, it's so important, and so you're right. Not only I am bringing work onto the pasture in terms of I'm thinking, but I'm thinking at a different pace and in a
Yeah.
different way. And because of that thought, I'm bringing that back to work, and I think I'm better for that. Certainly feel better about that. Bringing my whole self to work, everything I'm doing. So
That's super cool. Yeah, I like that. And I kind of appreciate what you were saying too about, you know, I think COVID did like exposed us to each other's lives a little bit more. And perfect case in point, you can probably hear my kids in the background right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
It's like, and I remember Shane, like literally, if I go back to 2019, I remember because we were a remote organization before the pandemic. So
yeah,
I always was taking Zoom calls with credit unions, right? And
yes,
I'm not gonna lie, man. I did. I totally put you like, oh gosh, the CEO of the credit union's on the call. Like, got to put him
yeah,
on a pedestal. I've got to be on my best behavior. Like, I got to
right,
make sure my environment is perfect. Like, God forbid one of the kids come running in. And then when COVID happened, you were like, then you were on the phone with that CEO and they were home and their kids ran in. And I
yeah,
was like,
right,
you know what? We're all just people, man. Like, why are we like putting this wall up. And so, I started to we'd be on a call and somebody's kid would run in and they'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm like, no, bring the kid in. Like, what's their name? Tell me about them. What grade are you? Like, what are you learning in school? Because
that's
like,
awesome.
that's when you start to learn about people and you're like, okay, I actually understand what makes you tick and kind of how you define success in life, both personally and professionally. And I think it just changes everything. So I actually really appreciated that, now I'll be the first one to tell you, I am unabashed about it. I could be on a call with Navy Fed and their executive team. And if my 1-year-old daughter runs into my office and she wants a hug, I tell you what, nothing is more important than that to me.
Yep. Amen. Yeah, that is so good. And fundamentally we're social creatures and we love to engage with other human beings. And it is kind of funny if you think about it pre-COVID, how we did tend to walk around almost as these caricatures of ourselves, Shane the executive, and then, will not cross the boundary into Shane the farmer, and never the twain shall meet. But even here in Modesto it's a smaller kind of community, and it's kind of cool when someone I work with sees me in a farm store or in Home Depot, and I look very destitute and like I need some help, but it's also good and funny, and I think it helps in everything, in the relationships, and if it's coworkers at work and they see me in that environment, it makes our work life and work relationship just that much warmer, right?
Yeah.
And so a weird thing to say that COVID was probably good, but certainly in that regard, I think it was good.
Yeah, I agree. I think about it the same way. And it is true, right? Like the more you interact with people with all the versions of yourself, the more real the relationship actually becomes too. Yes. And then that's where I think real trust is built. Amen. And the magic happens when there's trust, right? And especially, this is a good dovetail, actually. I didn't plan this, but especially when you're talking about something that's super creative like marketing, right? And being able to trust and say, hey, I got this crazy idea, Shane, and this might get me fired, but if not, it's going to be awesome, right? And when you have that deeper relationship with somebody on your team, that trust level is going to be a lot higher.
Yes, and absolutely. The trust in them to actually execute and do the thing and to take the risk, the trust that they have in you as a leader and me as a leader, that they can take that risk and potentially fail, and we're going to be there for them, and we're not going to see them as that failure. We're going to see them as the true human being, and that, it's such a great point. And man, trust is everything, right? It's that foundational layer of 5 dysfunctions of a team and everything that we've sort of read about in terms of leadership and human relationships. And such a good point. And yeah, it's hard to trust somebody that you can't see past that unidimensional facade. And so taking those creative risks, especially in marketing, especially in a fast moving, very dynamic environment like we're in, where we have to be incredibly experimental, that trust in each other, both me having trust in the team to take the risk and them having the trust in me to support them when they do, is so key. So key.
I mean, I can't speak for your team, but I have to imagine that if somebody maybe new joins Mocse, right? And they're like, oh man, got to put, Shane, the CEO, on a pedestal and be on eggshells around him. And then they're in Home Depot, see you covered in cow poop. They're probably like, you know what? He's just a regular dude. Like, I could probably just have a normal conversation with him.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, there's, it can be challenging. It's something that since I've come into Mocse, I'm really, really in tune with the fact that it doesn't matter who I am. You and I could swap places. You could walk around and have this title of CEO, and it's just such a heavy, laden title, and people bring all kinds of baggage to it. And if it's, I really have to work hard to open up and help people see that yes, I have a job, and it's no more important or less important than any other job in the credit union. I talk with every new hire when they come in, and one of the last things I tell them is I know that my title's big. I understand that, and I know it's easy for me to say, when you see me, just stop me if you want to talk about anything, or come to my office. But I always tell them, and I absolutely believe it, that I may be the most disposable person in the credit union. Like, I walk across the street, get hit by a truck. Like, we're going to make loans, we're going to take deposits, members are going to log into online banking, everything's going to work just fine. If our contact center gets taken out, we're like dead in the water.
Yeah.
Like, we got a real problem. And so, and I try to tell them that I have a job. It's to set the vision and help guide us and look further out. But your job is incredibly important, whatever that they're doing. And so I try right from day one to move some of that mysticism around that title, and hopefully make myself approachable.
This is what's funny about this podcast too, right? Hopefully people know at this point, like, we do zero prep going into these episodes. So Shane and I have talked about nothing about what we're actually going to talk about today. And, it's always funny the direction that it ultimately ends up taking. But, that is such a good point of just thinking about, I think, and I feel like I've made this kind of comment on the podcast before, Shane, that, sometimes, like, we say the thing or we read the thing and we know that that's what we're supposed to do, but then we do something different. And I think a lot of times you find people who find their way into leadership roles, and we all know that the right thing to say and do is that actually, as a leader, like, I do very little.
Yeah.
I actually just empower others to do the things. And if I'm trying to do that for them, that's a problem.
Yes.
And if I'm not getting out of the way and allowing them to do and use their unique gifts and skills and experiences and perspectives, then I'm not actually doing a good job. But it is really hard to live that sometimes. And you're like, well, I'm the one in charge, so I have to do the thing, or I have to make the decision, and it's like, in all reality, I'm probably the least important person on my entire team.
Yep.
Right?
No, that's exactly it. And it is easy to fall into that trap of making the decisions. And part of the challenge is with that positional power and the title and all of that, people are all too willing and happy to let you make that decision, or to sort of hand that decision to you. And you're right, it's so easy, especially as a leader, to like just grab it and make that decision or do that thing. And man, I'm under no illusion that I have it all dialed in and perfect. That's what I try to work on every day is to not get caught in that trap, and really help the team realize their talents. Because you're so right. I mean, and it's something I try to tell everybody in the credit union, certainly new folks, that if we're reliant on the success of the credit union to be coming solely from what comes out of my head, then we're going to fail.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm, like all of us, I'm, flawed and make mistakes and have faulty reasoning and all of that stuff. But together, our combined brain power and different perspectives, that's what's going to make us successful. And to your point, it's we have to live it as leaders, and it's not always easy, for sure.
I have a super real example from literally like an hour ago.
Yeah.
And so this morning, my marketing director had a call to go over how to use some new templates for some of the different content and things that we create and stuff. And so, again, it's on paper. He reports to me. I approve his PTO and his expense reports, and I am his boss. And Shane, not And not 6 hours later, I screwed up and did the process wrong. And man, did he just berate me in a public Slack channel over it and was like, are you kidding me, bro? Like, we just met on this, you know? And it's like,
That's
and
great.
that's just, it's such an awesome reminder and kind of an appreciation of, man, that tells me I feel really good about the team, right? Because to your
Yeah.
point, it's like, gosh, if it had been up to me how we had done that, I clearly would have done it wrong. And I had
Yep.
somebody with a better skill set and a different perspective. But it was just like, I don't know, like I kind of geek out that I love that like he just took me to class
Yeah.
in front of everybody on that. I'm like, you know what? That makes me feel good about the culture that we build. If somebody feels
100%.
comfortable in that. But at the same time, it like you were saying, I mean, it's just it can be really hard. And I'm sitting here giving you an example where I feel like I did the right thing and had
Yeah.
built the right culture. But at the same time, I probably have 10 examples where I've done it wrong.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's part of the journey, and yeah, that says a lot. It says a lot when someone on your team can, kind of give you a little crap and call you out and take you to task, and it says a lot, and it's so important, right? It's man, the terrifying scenario is the emperor's new clothes, right? When
Right.
everyone's just telling you how awesome you are and everything you're doing is perfect, and we know that's not the case. So
Right.
yeah, that's a great culture to reinforce for sure.
Well, I tell you what, man, like I said, kind of introducing you, I've really been looking forward to this episode with you because, and for those of you listening in, I mean, Shane and I are recording literally on a Friday night. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that at some point my wife's going to come in here and be like, hey, dude, like, we got to have dinner. Like, the kids are hungry. We could probably go all night long because I really genuinely am impressed by and excited to see the content that your credit union is turning out. And again, longtime listeners of this podcast are no stranger to, and I'm overgeneralizing. Please don't take me into the parking lot over this. But community financial services and specifically credit unions as a whole, as an industry, are not good at marketing, period. I will say it. We see it time and time again. And in all reality, it's reflected in, if you look at national averages for membership growth, like the data doesn't lie. I'm sorry. And I want to change that. And I want to see that changed. And we've had lots of guests on the podcast, from different marketing firms that are trying to help to different, folks. But this is really exciting for me because I'm actually getting to talk to a credit union that I think is challenging that stereotype, is challenging the status quo, and is really stepping outside of the traditional boxes and saying, hey, if we apply the same, game theory that we've applied for how we attract members from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago to today, we will not be successful. So we're going to change the
Amen.
game. And
Amen.
I think it's really cool to see you guys changing the game. So, Shane, I would love to just kind of have you walk us through maybe a little bit of just the evolution of, what were some of the early internal conversations that you guys had as a team? And how did that kind of set the direction for how you think about marketing at Mocse? And then what are some of the examples of what that's turned into?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been at Moxie 4.5 years, and the first thing we did is we spent 6 to 8 months out a broader vision for the organization, and we built out a 10-year vision, and it has 5 broad themes that we focus on. I got to tell you, the concept in that structure was completely ripped off from my former boss. And I'll give him a shout out, Mark Zook at Maps.
Love
And
it.
I was really privileged to work with him for like 6 years and went through this vision building process and really took that kind of model to Moxie and built out a vision here. And it wasn't me; it was the entire team. Like I said, it took like 6 to 8 months. We brought all stakeholders to the table. Everybody, community, members, non-members, employees, board, retirees, everybody, and really started digging down into what is Moxie great at, where are our gaps, Where's the future headed? What do we need to do to best position ourselves for the future? And one of those big themes was ensuring that our brand resonates in our markets. And so that was kind of the embryonic material for a rebranding. So we created the vision, and out of that we discovered a little bit of who we are and what's our genetic material and how do we reposition our brand for the future that we imagine for ourselves in this 10-year vision. And so coming out of that, that embarked us, that sort of took us on. And I should stop here and pause and say, on that 10-year vision with those 5 themes, what they started serving as right from the moment that we put them together to current day is just a filter, just a set of filters. Is the decision we're making now moving us further towards that 10-year vision? And so one of those being a highly resonant local brand, locally relevant brand, that set us off on another path, exploring the brand we had, digging in deeper to understand who we were, who people thought we were, and then to reimagine and envision the brand. And there's a couple of cool elements that came out of that. One is the obvious, the name. When you pronounce it, Mocse, that's kind of a big name to live up to from a marketing perspective, right? You can't have a name like Mocse and then come out with
And
some
not have
really
any guts.
vanilla
Yeah.
stock photography, like check out our low rates. Like no, we can't. It would be like almost illegal to do that with a name like Mocse. And the other element was this core dimension when we just really dug down and looked at like what is our genetic makeup? Who are we really? And out of that we produced a brand persona. And what we decided is, as an organization, we're audaciously authentic. And that brand persona, that is driving and filtering everything we do from a branding perspective. Now, at this point, we were, a little sleepy. We were a bit of a sleepy credit union. We had gotten a little complacent. And part of that is, and this is a natural life cycle, right, of every business, certainly every credit union. What happened is we just had this whole leadership team that grew up together. And I came in on the heels of a retiring CEO who had been here 41 years. And then there was just a parade of retirements. The CFO had been here 38 years. The head of marketing at that point, even before the rebranding, retired, and she was here 35 years.
Wow.
So, I think what had happened is a very natural corporate life cycle of an organization where people had grown up together, gotten super comfortable. The organization had gotten a little bit static, and we kind of forgot. Like when you do that, you forget who you are, and right, and you just start to kind of go through the motions and do the transactions. And so what we really did is spend a lot of time asking who we were. And so it's a funny thing to say, well, we're audaciously authentic when we've been a bit static for a number of years. But really, when you dig into the past of the credit union, you look at how we started and where we came from, that's actually exactly what we are. And even the fact that we had navigated some really challenging times. And, when I got into credit unions, there were 12,500 of them. Now there's 4,500. And just the fact that Mocse was still standing talks about a little bit of audacity, right?
Yeah.
But when you look back in the past, we were founded, it's kind of a classic credit union story, but it is audacious. We were founded in a couple's kitchen, Harry and Lucille Hammer, right?
I love that.
And they ran it out of their kitchen for employees of the the local school district, and people would come. I got to tell you, I'm going to take a quick detour. I just talked with a member the other day, 91 years old, and I'm telling you, Josh, this guy, he's sharper than you and I put together. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
he is like on his game. And it turns out the credit union was 1 year old when he joined the credit union.
Wow.
And he talked about he got his first car loan. It was a used station wagon for $300,
Nice.
and he had to get a loan. And he did it in that kitchen. Like, I had never met anyone who like actually did anything in the kitchen. And he said, "Yeah, I got my loan in the kitchen of Harry and Lucille." And he said the credit union was so small, they were doing a loan for $300, that they said, "We'll get back to you when we have enough deposits to fund your loan, your $300 loan." Isn't that rad? Like, isn't that
That's
just
so
crazy?
cool. I mean, but that is the cooperative movement, right? Like,
Right.
to the nth degree.
Yeah. And you think about a financial institution started in a kitchen and scrappy enough to continue on and build something sustainable. Then, so as Harry and Lucille, who were, running it out of their kitchen, Lucille actually was the first CEO. And so here you had in the 50s a female CEO of a financial institution. I mean, think about the 1950s. How many women were there running anything to do with finance, right? It was an old boys club and
Yeah,
button down
totally.
and suits. And we got some cool old pictures around of her, and she looked tough, man. You
That's
look like,
rad.
I can't even like make eye contact with this one picture. I'm like, man, that's intense. She's intense. But when you think about that, when you think about, our first CEO was a woman when there weren't women running credit unions or banks, founded in the kitchen, the fact that we're still standing after all of these challenges and two-thirds of the industry like disappeared, uh, we are audaciously authentic,
Yeah.
right? It takes a lot of audacity to do that. The authenticity comes from, and the people here are real. We're just real. They're from here. They, born and raised here, grew up here, met their, we have so many classic stories of people who met their high school sweetheart, they got married, started the family. We have two people on our leadership team. One is a police chief of a local town called Oakdale, which is known as the cowboy capital of the world.
Really?
And yes, and another
Huh.
one is a police chief of Riverbank. So like, I mean, like they grew up and they became, chief of police in their local hometown. It's very very authentic. It's like Americana, like, true Americana. So you take that audacity and you take that authenticity, and all of this is a summation of many months of conversations with the whole team, where at the end we're like, yeah, we're audaciously authentic. So now, in terms of branding and marketing and going forward, what we try to do, we fall into these. You start to slip and start to do the same old thing, and then we ask ourselves, what would an audaciously authentic company do? And how would an audaciously authentic company solve this problem? And that's how we've made decisions, not only around marketing but product development and the way that we engage with the community and all of that. It's been fun. It's been a heck of a fun ride for sure.
Well, and you were talking about, I think the more you do it, the deeper the rut gets. And the deeper the rut is, the harder it is to get out.
Yes, that's exactly right. And having that focusing question, or that focusing those kind of guardrails that make you stop. And we say it in meetings because we catch ourselves all the time. We'll start to go down and like, well, let's do this and let's do that. And we're getting better and better, but someone on the team will say, okay, time out. What would an audaciously authentic company do? And then everyone just like, it just stops us in our tracks. It's like, okay, hold on a second. Wait, we got to stop. We're doing the same old,
Yeah.
just like everyone else is doing. And if we're doing it the same thing everyone else is doing, then why come to us, right? Why? What's going to make us different?
Yeah. I mean, that is the heart of the question, if you ask me. Right.
Right.
I mean, because I'm gonna touch back on, you picked on it, so I'm gonna pick on it too. Right. I mean, dude, I can drive down, I-5 and I can see 10 different billboards for 10 different financial institutions saying they've got the best rates.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Yes.
cool. Is that really all you've got going for you? Right.
Right.
And
Right.
why would I do business with you over somebody else if your rate might actually even be a little bit higher? What's the value? Where's the value that you bring to me?
Oh man.
And it is, dude. I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel like that so many of us have gotten caught into that trap of, marketing based on products and rates and things. And,
Yes.
the challenge is that the world has changed so much. And I mean, I can go to ChatGPT and say, I'm looking for this type of product, scour the internet and go find me whoever has the lowest rate that I can secure with XYZ,
Yep.
and I can figure that out. Right. And so
Yep.
I'm probably never even going to see your marketing messaging. Now, am I saying that everyone is thinking like me and using ChatGPT to do that? Maybe not today, but I bet you a lot of people are. And I bet you tomorrow it's going to be more. And the next day it's going to be even more. Right.
Yep.
And so those kinds of things, technology is actually going to eliminate that as a differentiator, because I'll just quickly say, go find me the lowest rate. And if that's
Yep.
what I'm buying based on, then you and every other credit union around you are now in a rate war to the bottom. And that's a sucky world to be in.
Yeah. Man, you nailed it. And our industry is, yeah, we're so caught in that trap. Yeah, everybody wants to make it about rates, and early on we're way better now in product development and thinking about how do we grow and who do we attract and how do we attract them. Or early days here at Moxie, people were thinking, just put out the big rate, or if you want more car loans, lower the rate. And something that we've talked about a lot here, it's something that I've said, because I've been fortunate, I've had a long marketing runway, but I've said, okay, great, everybody is driven by price. So if I go out in the parking lot, every car is going to be the cheapest car in the parking lot, right? Because all we worry about is how much we're paying for something, and there's not going to be a Beamer or a Mercedes out there or
That's
any
a
of
great point.
that. And and it's absolutely true, right? There are people who buy on rate. We know that for sure. But are those the people we want? And the answer that we've come to at Moxie is it's value. And man, you nailed it. I want you to come in and like give a presentation to the team. Like value, that word has been like preached a lot here in Moxie. It isn't, price is one small component of value, and
Yeah.
and not even the most important and the most easy to copy. And yeah, we can't. You're right. It is a race to the bottom, and it's something that we've talked about here. Like, if we're competing on price, the big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, anybody can beat us any day of the week, and they can sustain pain in our market a lot longer than we can
That's a good
at
point.
a very low margin. So what we have to do is beat in other ways, and especially at our size. And I hope more credit unions get that message. And man, you keep preaching, because
I'm trying, man. I'm
that's a good
trying. But
message.
that's why I need people like
Yeah.
you to talk about it too, right? I think that's, I really like you using the analogy of like, if you go out into the parking lot, we should just see, what base model 1989 Toyota Corollas out there. And we don't,
Right.
right? And I think
Right.
to that same token, right? Like think about, go just, I'm super curious. If you're listening to this
Yes.
podcast, when you're done, when you're like, doing your late night doom scrolling on Instagram, pay attention to the ads that you get on Instagram. And you will absolutely probably get some things that are possibly touching on price. But I would argue that it's a lot less about that. And what they have done is whatever product is being pitched to you is something that is probably fairly niche. It's something that's probably very data driven based on the interactions across the internet you've had with other products, services, and companies. And they're pitching their value to you, whether it be a mattress that says, hey, we're the premium mattress that you're going to get the best night's sleep out of, or whatever it may be. And I think that there's a combination of one, just human nature and behavior, right? And we work hard for our money, so we want to extract value out of it when we spend it. And so there's got to be some sort of gratification that comes with that. And at the same time, I think that there's an interesting, and I've talked about this quite a few times on the podcast. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a resurgence, but there's like a resurgence in this desire to shop local and shop small. It's why you see the massive success of Etsy, right?
Yes.
People are shopping at farmers markets again, right? Like you're starting to see some of that. And so I would argue that younger consumers, hint, hint, who you want to attract, credit unions, right, actually put a lot of value on, no, this is a part of my community. Or, I'm buying based on the foundational principles and beliefs and attributes of this company. And I'm buying their product because of maybe their corporate social responsibility program. People are literally buying because of those types of things, right?
Yeah.
And I've always made the argument that if you think about the good guys in banking, it's freaking credit unions, man. Like,
yes,
you
amen.
I'm sorry, but if you want to try and argue to me that Venmo gives two craps about you as a consumer, like, you're going to lose that argument with me all day, every day, right?
Right.
But like you were talking about with the 91-year-old member, right?
Yes.
How many stories do you have, if you asked across your credit union membership, how many stories do you have that would probably bring a tear to your eye about the impact that you had on somebody's life, right?
Oh, man.
And
Yes.
so that's value.
Amen. It's value. And like for that 91-year-old member, it was relationship over decades. And, on the other side of the age spectrum, I got to tell you, I was participating in a local event that just had a bunch of graduating high school seniors, and there were local professionals and leaders just mentoring them for a day and going over resumes and talking to them. And I just serendipity. I was paired up with this young lady, super bright, headed off to college, young woman of color, really ambitious.
Nice.
And she said, "So what do you do, sir?" Which I'll never get used to ever in my life. But I work at Mocse Credit Union, and her eyes lit up, and she's like, "I love Mocse. My mom and I love Mocse." And she said, "You're rebranding." She talked about our rebranding. She said,
What?
"It's so bright and lively." And yeah, talk about getting teary-eyed, man. I was like, "Please tell me more."
Yeah.
And she pulled out. I maybe later on I'll send you a picture. I got a picture of her holding her debit card, and she pulled that out and showed me. Yeah, and she was stoked. And I was asking her because she's going to head off to college in California, but a little ways away. And she's like, "No, I'm gonna keep my accounts with Mocse." And what her comment was, I mean, it really. Sometimes you wonder if you're breathing your own exhaust with rebranding and marketing, and am I telling myself a story that I want to hear? But her comment was, "It's so lively, it's not boring like a bank. My mom and I love Mocse," and so we got the multiple generations.
It's cool.
We're hitting the mark on the look and feel and the impression of what the brand is with this 18-year-old young lady who is if I could sketch out my ideal target, she's pretty close to it. And but yeah, and one thing she never mentioned was your free checking, or this is free, or that doesn't cost a lot. It was all
Yeah.
around how lively we were. We weren't boring like a bank. She loves the people. I mean, there's there's a whole value set there that we can address with the younger generation. And to your point, it doesn't have to be a race for the bottom.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool about the story with her pulling out her debit card. So I had a similar experience recently, and it was the first time I'd ever had this experience. In all the travel that I do, in all the credit unions that I meet, and out of respect for them, I can't name the name of the credit union
Sure.
right now, but we were visiting a credit union, and so anybody who knows me and our senior solutions consultant, Jimmy Miller, well enough knows we have a reputation for getting up at like 5 in the morning and going hitting the gym together. And that's like the start to our day when we're on the road together. And so in true fashion, Jimmy and I are, up at 5 in the morning. We find wherever the local gym is closest to the credit union, can't do the hotel gym. So we go to the gym, and we like brought our backpacks with our clothes to change into. We were going to shower at the gym, go straight to the credit union. And I had a box of stuff that we were bringing for the credit union. And I asked the guy at the gym counter, I was like, hey, do you mind if I could like store this so I don't have to lug it around the gym with me? And he was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no problem. Just like keep it behind the desk. And he was like, as long as it's not like a box of snakes or anything, and it starts this whole funny conversation. We just start chatting, and then he's like, what is it? And he was like, oh, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, we're here to meet with a credit union. And he was like, oh yeah, who's that? And I said the name of the credit union. And Shane, I will never forget this. It was one of the coolest moments like in my career of going and meeting credit unions. I'm not kidding. 5 different employees from behind the counter of this gym
Yeah.
whip out their debit cards and slap them down on the counter. And they're like, we're members. They're the
Oh,
best.
man.
And every single one of them, yeah, nobody told us, oh, I love them. They saved me 1/10 of a point on my truck loan,
Right.
right? They all said,
Right.
oh, I love them. Like, same thing. Like, they're a part of our community. They've been a part of my family. Like, they are a part of my story, of my financial life. And it was just so cool to
Yes.
see that community rally around that credit union. And I tell you what, it made me like 10 times more excited to go into the meeting with that credit union later that day. And I was like, the first thing I want to tell them is that story. And I was like,
Yeah.
you've got something special. That's
Yes.
cool.
Yes. Man, that is cool. And it's so funny because that's our industry, we get out a lot and we talk with a lot of people, and both you and I and a lot of leaders in our industry. And there's a lot of lack of belief and faith and lack of appreciation for what we actually are providing
Yeah.
to our members. And that's such a great example what you just laid out. My 91-year-old member, the 18-year-old member, like it's so easy for us to get lost in like, oh, all we're doing is managing risk and, taking money in and lending it out. We're really not doing anything that's important, but what we do is incredibly important. And not only just for helping people with their financial lives, but keeping them connected with their community, making them feel proud. One of the comments that we hear about Moxie all the time is we get out a lot in the community and we go way beyond just the banner, right? If we're involved in something, we're rolling up our sleeves and we're out packing boxes or doing stuff. And I constantly hear from members like, I see us everywhere. I see Moxie everywhere.
That's cool.
And we can do that in our community. Like the big banks, Citibank or Chase or whatever, they can come and they can write the check and they might have their area market person, but we live here, our roots are here, people see us here, and that means something,
Yeah.
right? And I think credit unions we shortchange ourselves a lot on that. We think that we have to be the best technology. No, we got to be good. There's a standard. We certainly don't have to be the best. We think that we got to be the cheapest or the best price. Absolutely not. What we have to be is I think, at least for Moxie, true to who we are, and live that, and don't forget who we're serving. And it's and if we do that, if we do that every day, we're going to be more than okay.
I want to touch back on a point that I think you were kind of alluding to. I used to kind of wonder why, Shane, that so I don't know if we've talked about my credit union story, but like I was saved by
Yeah,
a credit union, right?
yeah,
And so it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about credit unions. And I always argue, I'm like, there's so many stories like mine. And so
yeah.
I went to my credit union that I now sit on the board of,
Oh,
and I
that's
told our
awesome.
CEO, I was like, dude, I have an amazing story of how you guys saved me. I was like, I'm going to write it up. I'm going to turn it into a marketing piece for you, and I'm going to give it to you. Use
That's
it.
amazing.
And I was like, because there's so many more stories like mine, and there's probably somebody sitting there in a similar story to mine looking for a credit union.
Yeah.
And so I've always wondered, I'm like, why don't credit unions use those stories? And it
Yes.
finally kind of got to me. And I want you to validate this.
Yes.
And I think it's because it's just normal for you,
Yes.
right? You're like,
Yes.
oh, yeah, we saved Josh from financial peril. That was just Tuesday. No big deal. And I'm like, no, that
Right.
literally altered the course
Right.
of my life.
Yeah.
Like
Such
that's the
such
level
a
of impact that
great
had.
point.
It altered the course of my life. And I am where I am today because of that course alteration. Like, can you not imagine what that does? And so,
Yeah.
no, that's not just any given Tuesday, friends. That's special. That's
Right.
just normal to you
Yes.
guys.
That's
So you don't talk about it.
yeah. You hit the nail on the head. You're absolutely right. And I see that all the time when I'm traversing through the credit union and I'm able to have those focused conversations with people who are directly serving our members, and I might just toss out a flippant random question like, what's the coolest thing that happened to you today on the phone? And then you get one of these stories back, and you get one every single time. There's always someone that we're going the extra mile for and doing the thing that a much larger organization can't do. And by larger, I mean like bank large. It's funny too. Credit unions, we're in this interesting mindset of we gotta grow, we gotta scale, and scaling is important. But you take the largest credit union, you take the largest 10 credit unions, and they're still just a smallish bank. You know, so it's not like it's not like there's if you're a $5 billion credit union, you're still a small community
Yep.
focused institution, and you still got those stories all over the place, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting how many of those stories are and like how impactful they are. So, we were talking a little bit about our Java for Kids campaign when we were chatting in GAC,
Yes.
and we recently did some new stuff with that campaign, and I was talking about it to our entire company at our all hands just the other night. And Shane, man, I'm telling you, like, it might even be hard for me to talk about it here and now. I'm like, I finished giving that and talking about the impact that that program has, and I get a Slack from a team member who's one of our product leaders, and she just opened up her whole story to me and how her credit union impacted her and how like credit unions for kids had impacted her. And Shane, I'm like sitting at my kitchen table bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
And my wife, I had it just on speaker on my phone, and my wife is like, what is going on? Like, why are you crying over there? And I like share some of this, and now my wife's in tears. And I'm like, but again, it is such a reminder that there are so many stories like that where it's not just like I got somebody into the product. It's
Right.
so much more. And I think that's special.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as you're talking, it dawns on me that that sort of regularity and how normal it is to for us to experience this every day. not only are we doing a disservice, I think, not telling our stories loudly and confidently enough in the market, but boy, you really got me thinking, Josh. I don't think we're telling that story strong enough to our employees. They see it and they live it and they know it. But again, like you said, it becomes so normalized and
Yeah.
regular. One of the first things I'm going to be doing after we get off this call is thinking, man, how do I kind of disrupt that just same old mindset and get everyone focused on, do you realize what you're doing? Do you realize the impact that you're having on people, and really drive that home? It's so important, and it is what makes us different. Everyone wants to belong
Yeah.
to something that makes a difference, right? And we do. We belong to that. That's cool.
I don't want to beat you up personally, but but a part of the problem too is that you think about it, and arguably because of your title, you are
Yes.
probably one of the most removed people from those stories because
100%.
the number one, my favorite people to talk to in the world are
Yes.
tellers and folks in
Yep.
the call center because they've got the stories. And that
Yes.
is the challenge, right? And it's the
Yes.
higher up the food chain you get at the credit union, and the bigger your credit union becomes, the harder it is to your point, like
That's right.
break the this is just normal and we don't need to talk about it or celebrate it. And how do we disseminate the impact that we have day in and day out for our members so that people are reminded, not just on like a surface or tertiary level, like the direct impact that you're having on the people in the community that you serve.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and focusing in on that, and that's not beating up me or my title at all. I agree 100%. It drives me crazy how removed this position is from the real the real juju, of the business, because we're struggling and managing all this other
Yeah.
stuff. But I remember coming in. This is my first CEO gig, and I think it was a book that was like 10 things every CEO should know. And one of the top 10 things was, if you think you know what's going on in your organization, you're wrong. you know, and that just, I mean, obviously it just sticks in my mind. I walk around here every day, like thinking that, like, I really don't know what's going on. I know parts and pieces, but yeah, there's a lot I don't know.
That's funny. No, but it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like to some degree, it's almost the unavoidable challenge that, as an organization grows and scales. I mean, I'll be super transparent with you. I struggle with that as we have grown and as I've kind of, rose into the ranks of our executive team. Is I remember a day where I probably talked to every single one of our customers at least once a week. And now it's just physically impossible. And that kind of sucks. I kind of hate that. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a hard
Yeah.
realization. So then it's like, okay, how do I got to fix that? Because just like you with your
Yes.
members, right? Like the pulse of my organization is my customers. So how do I try to
Yes.
find ways to make sure I'm super connected to understanding, are we really adding value? Or are we just check
Right.
marking a box? Or are we not even paying attention? We're deaf.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a challenge.
it's such a challenge. I'd mentioned that 91-year-old member, and I hadn't really thought about this till now, but this, I'm happy about this, and I need to find a way to amplify and continue to cultivate. The way that I talked to him was, somebody on the front line was talking to him, and they said, Shane should talk to this guy. Like, Shane would love
Dude,
this.
that's awesome.
Right?
That's cool.
Yeah, and they came back and got me. But as we're talking, I'm thinking, yeah, I need to really, how do I help amplify that and cultivate that? So I'm just getting more of that, and probably the same for you, like just getting more people going, oh, this is that thing that like
This is
will
the
get the
thing.
CEO stoked, you know,
Yeah.
and that should help me get more connected. It's funny because it's organizational structure. It's not the people, but the structure doesn't want you close to that,
Yeah.
right? It's weird, but it's so important. But we need to do a regular call because
I know.
I want to make sure I never get that terrifies me, like the fact that we are as humans that we can get complacent and
Yeah.
we can get like, well, here I am showing up to work again today, and oh gosh, if I ever do that, it's we're in trouble, you
Man, I
know.
tell you what, I talk to my wife about that all the time. And I'm like, I want you to be the sounding board for that because you know me better than anybody. And, I work from home when I'm not
Yeah,
traveling. She's here with the kids and she totally
yeah,
hears me on calls. And I'm like, hey, if you ever hear me, talking about stuff where like you can tell I'm just packing it in or mailing it in and
yeah,
like I'm doing the same thing I've always done. Like, come yell at me and tell me that I've told you to not let me be that. And that
yeah,
brings me back to something I was actually, it's funny, I took a note on and I was like, I want to come back to that because you had alluded to something that I think was pretty interesting. And you talked about kind of creating this like 10-year strategy and vision for the credit union, but you had talked about how it had to be, and I don't remember the exact words that you used, but something to the effect of, flexible enough to say it was just guardrails.
yes,
And I'd love to get your thoughts on, especially in the pace of the world of today, right? Like you were saying
yes,
earlier, we're not quite just like on the farm watching the cow, chew the grass
yeah,
and life just moves super fast these days. And especially
hmm,
thanks to technology, it moves really fast and the, pace of innovation and expectation for things like customer experience and all of that, it changes so fast that I would
yeah,
argue that if you have a solid, rigid 10-year roadmap,
uh,
it's only because it's going to take you 10 freaking years to do it. And not
yes,
because you have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen in 10 years. And so you
right,
have to have a long term vision that says, this is the core DNA of who we are that will never change. But everything else around it has to be able to change at a moment's notice. So how did you
absolutely,
guys kind of
yeah,
factor that? I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think I'm
yeah.
right. It sounds like you
I,
factored that
what
thought process
we did
into
is
that
really,
plan. So when you did that, how did you factor
yes.
that kind of into your plan to say, this is what will never change, and this is what should change every day?
Yes, that's a great question. Finding that right level of what's actually putting into sharp relief, like the general direction versus something that's stringing us, or making us hidebound. And I'd say what we focused on language, and it's almost guiding core philosophies or principles. So, for example, one of our big five themes is we are obsessed with member experience, and like that should remain, as solid as the pyramids. Like we should always be obsessed with
Yeah.
member experience. Now, obviously, the way that comes to fruition is going to change and evolve, and new generations, new technologies, expectations, but it also speaks to a way of thinking. So it every and boy, we are a long way off from. I'd say that's the other thing is everything is framed. It's aspirational, but framed as a current state. So we are obsessed with member experience. In reality, that's where we want to be, and I don't know that we'll ever truly 100% get there. Just simply because things do change and people do get sort of complacent, and we do start doing the same thing over and over. But if we can use that as a focusing statement that allows us, like everything we do when we're buying a new technology or looking at new processes, we say, okay, is this really being obsessed with member experience? And sometimes we get into like, what is obsession? What does that sound like? What does it look like? And really try to unpack that and push us down the field in that direction, but not get too hung up on any specific technology or any even one kind of physical model or retail model, but always thinking about where's the member at, where are they headed to, and how do we ensure that what we're building is going to be sustainable, but most importantly, focused on that obsession with member experience. And so we
Yeah.
have, member experience, we have some statement around technology, a statement around branding, that brand resonance element of the 10-year vision. We got logos and colors and all the sort of physical elements of the brand, but fundamentally like that being audaciously authentic is that's got to be who we are. And we have to live that no matter what we do. And right now we wrapped a Volkswagen Buzz and we did a
I don't
mural
think
on
so cool.
yeah, and a mural on a building. But who knows what that is going to be in 3 years? But
Yep.
one thing is it better resonate with our market and it better be audaciously authentic, right? Does that answer the question?
It does, very
Okay.
much so. And I think one of the things that I really, as I guess a fellow marketer, like I'm a big fan of words have meaning, right? And
Yes.
you use a specific word for a specific reason.
Yep.
And, I think this will probably resonate with you as well. You want to know one of my favorite marketing campaigns I think I've ever seen in my entire life, and
Yeah.
it's
Let's hear it.
always
I love
stuck
this.
with me, is one from Lexus. And I'm sad that they changed it because it shows that they don't live that anymore, which is really sad. But the
Yeah.
slogan was the relentless pursuit of perfection.
Yes.
And I loved that for a couple of reasons because one, it said it was going to be relentless, which obviously it wasn't because that's no longer their slogan. But it was this, it's a very intense word. It's not like
Yes.
we're going to try really hard to do good, right? They
Right.
were like, we are relentlessly going to pursue perfection. And then using
Yes.
pursue didn't say we are going to relentlessly catch perfection.
Right.
It was we're going to chase perfection and we're
Right.
never going to arrive.
Right.
And I just
Yes.
always love that thought process of like, hey, I'm going to relentlessly pursue perfection. I know I'm never going to be perfect, but
Yes.
I am going to give everything that I've got towards attempting to have that as my guiding light. And so I think the words that we use as a part of our brand and our culture, it speaks so much to what are the things that you value and where is the place that you put the emphasis.
100%. Man, yeah, we are a couple of marketers for sure because that's like catnip for me, man. Definitely words really do matter and how we frame things and yeah, that I remember that slogan. I can in my mind as you're talking, I could like picture the commercials and they were
Right?
all kind of like the black was really stark and the silver of the car was,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
car looked like it was meticulously like designed and that you're so right. That word relentless. There's it to really push the bounds of a brand. It's you almost need that word that is just a smidge over the top,
Right?
right? A little almost scary, and that relentless is, that's Terminator. That's like it is not stopping, and yeah, that's so like when we talk about our 10-year vision and we think about obsession with member
Yeah.
experience, we say it like when I talk with new employees as they're coming in and talk to them about the 10-year vision. I say obsessed. That's a strong word. You think about it, someone's almost a little crazy when they're obsessed, right? But that's what we want to be. We want to be. Um, we don't want to accept the status quo. We don't want to accept we give an okay member experience.
Yeah.
We have to be absolutely obsessed with it. And yeah, words in branding are It's more important than all the other visual stuff, right?
Yep. I wanted to come back to one last thing that you were talking about earlier. And you were talking about just how authentic you are to your community, and that you're kind of focused on who you're right for and not really focused on who you're not right for. And
Yes.
I want to ask a really dangerous question that I have no idea how you're going to take. But the question is, to a certain point, do you even need or want to grow? And yes, we need to grow. We need to remain financially stable to be able to do the good things that we do, right? But can Moxie be audaciously authentic in New York?
Right. Right. Yeah. I'd say the answer is no. We are one of the other, like, we have some deeper brand dimensions, and audaciously authentic is the persona. One of the deeper dimensions is hyper local, like really to be plugged in, woven in, deeply rooted and part of the community that we're in. And so, like, if you think through, if we go back to the mural on the building that we did, and just quick background, ugly building, so ugly we were thinking about tearing it down, or moving out or selling it. And we walked around downtown Modesto, and downtown Modesto, there's a Visit Modesto has a mural map with murals and descriptions and the names of the murals and the
Oh, cool.
buildings. Yeah, all over downtown are murals. And so we took a step back and said, we're in downtown Modesto with like one of the ugliest buildings downtown. And one of the things that makes it ugly is it had giant swaths of open, empty space on the building. And, we had to stop and say, what are we doing in a downtown that prides itself on its mural scene, and so much so that it's got a map and they give tours of
Yeah.
murals. We have got we need to not look at ourselves as not being a part of downtown, but we need to deeply enmesh, be hyper local, be authentic to our community and to who we are. And so, I won't take too long, but on the story about the mural, I I saw the murals. I called one of the most prolific local muralists out, had him take a look at our building, and I said, "All right, we got this building." And he said, "What do you want? What mural do you want?" And my response was, "I'm not an artist. Like, you're a muralist. You tell me." And what I loved is he goes, "Oh, thank God! I thought you were gonna say like you want money or something to do with finances on there." And my comment was, "No, there's a local art scene downtown. There's murals. We want this building to be a piece of art, not a billboard,
Super
not an
cool.
advertisement."
Yeah.
And he lit up. He's like, "Okay, yeah, let's do this." And he partnered with another muralist and created what we created, which is, I just love it. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my career. It's like a piece of public art that we gave to our community.
Yeah.
We took this eyesore of a building, and it's a gift, and it's part of the scene downtown.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so important. So to your point, like, we couldn't just go to New York City, and we shouldn't. We are different, a different flavor, and growth is important, and all of that. But we can grow in our community. We got plenty of runway, and I think the secret to our growth is to just be authentic,
Yeah.
and to be part of it, right?
Oh, I tell you what, man. I mean, from an outsider's perspective you guys eat, sleep, and breathe that. And I love it. I appreciate it. And I think it's really exciting to see that happening and to see what you're doing with it.
Man, I really appreciate those comments, and come down anytime. Yeah,
I'm
we'd love to
down.
have
Let's
you.
do it.
Yeah. Got some
Well,
great restaurants, and I'll take you on a mural tour. It'll
well,
be
I
fun.
want to ride in the VW Buzz. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a must.
Oh
Absolutely.
man. Well, Shane, honestly, this has been a long time coming. Like I said, my my big apology is that I haven't had you on sooner. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and can talk us through just how one credit union is trying to think a little bit differently. And I really do. I highly encourage you to follow Moxie. See what they're doing in the community, see how they're doing stuff in social media. It's really refreshing, and I will say it's really authentic to who you guys are, and I love it.
Man, I really appreciate those words, and it looks like the kids and the family are getting ready for dinner, so I'm coming
They're running
downstairs.
around. Yeah. Well, hey, before I let you go, I have two
Yeah.
final questions for you, sir. So the first is just, where do you go to get information about what's happening in the industry? Do you have any, blogs that you follow or pubs that you follow or things that you'd recommend?
I So not necessarily in the industry, but there's a podcast I'm addicted to, and a lot of folks in the like tech world, and yeah, I'm sure you're aware of this podcast, Acquired.
Oh,
Have
yeah,
you
yeah.
you listen to that?
Yep.
So love listening to that. I there definitely isn't one source. I consume all the usual credit union stuff, but I read. It's funny. What I do now is read articles and listen to books. So I read. I have no idea how many articles a day I read, but a lot, and listen to books, and it's highly varied. But I do. There's a couple. I don't know. I have a weird eclectic reading taste. One of them, funny enough, is in physics. I really
Oh,
like
cool.
to read about particle physics. And one of the things I would have never predicted this 5 years ago when I started reading about particle physics. But as I read about it, now you look at where we're at now in the evolution of technology. Not that I can build one or I understand it to a physicist level, but I'm definitely tuned in with things like quantum computing
Yeah.
and at least understand the general concepts, the power, and where we're going with that. So I don't know. Like I said, I think what I'd recommend is consuming a lot of different information, particularly things outside of your expertise, because that's where the creative sparks come, and that's where you we stop breathing our own exhaust, get out of our bubble, and see the much bigger world. So not one thing. Acquired is really cool just because it talks about company histories and journeys and strategy, and it's great listening while I'm wandering around on the farm out there.
That's super cool. I love that. Well, last but not least, if people want to connect with you or if they want to see and learn more about what Moxie is doing, how can they do that?
Oh man, that's LinkedIn is always good. I think you can look up Shane Saunders and you'll find it. I'm one of them.
Look for the baby cow.
Uh, yeah, with a baby cow. Uh, my email address is first letter S, like Sam or Shane, SSAUNDERS at mocze.org. So S Saunders at moxie.org. Uh, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that
All the
stuff.
things.
Yeah, all the things. And so love connecting with people. Just love, love, love it. I learned so much from them and learned a ton from you just talking to you
Oh, I
today.
appreciate that.
So
Well, I have to say, since Shane gave out his email, vendor friends, if you're listening, I love you to death. But if you send Shane a cold sales email because you got his email from my podcast, I will find you. Now, seriously, Shane, this is honestly, man, this is how I like to spend my Friday afternoon. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better way to just like cap the week with a reminder that there's some really cool people doing some really cool stuff out there, and it's really fun to hear what they're doing and hear their perspectives on it. So, Shane, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the Digital Banking Podcast with me.
Man, I really appreciate it, and right back at you. This is the Mutual Admiration Society because I really appreciate you. And when we talked at GAC a couple months ago, we were just vibing like right there, just standing in the middle of a really busy restaurant. But it's been really good to start to get to know you, and hopefully I can get to know you even better and deepen
Yeah,
that
we'll have to make this a
relationship. So
recurring thing for sure.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Again, appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Banking Podcast, powered by Typhone. Find more episodes on digitalbankingpodcast.com or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.